today we are recording this very fun oyster. We're going to paint these oysters, and we are not exactly going to be using the colors that we see, and we're going to be practicing a more loose watercolor style. You can download the reference photo in the comments section below and paint along. Download the reference photo, trace it out, and paint along with me. All right, here we go. Let's do this. Let me zoom in here so you can get a really good idea of what we are painting. So hopefully you can see that really well. And I have traced in some detail, but we're not going to do all of the detail. We are going to be playing with definitely a more loose watercolor style today. I first want to begin with the inside area of this, I believe, a mollusk. And I think I'm gonna make the inside orange. We're going to do a little purple on the inside of this shell, and then we're going to do some of the finer detail in a Payne's gray, followed by a background of a blue filling in shadows. So let's get started. I have 3 brushes I'm working with today, around 16 for our larger things, around 6 for most of the work, and around 2 for any of the details. And I want to begin, I believe, with my round 6. I don't know that the 16 is going to come in handy until the end. So I'm going to begin with this round 6. I'm going to start in a area. We're going to do things a little bit differently. I really want to capture this shell, and so I'm going to get water down, and the paper I'm using is actually a hot press paper, and I'm a little bit regretting that decision to do the hot press. I kind of wish that I would have, but I'm just getting this wet, and I'm gonna get some violet on and I'm gonna touch that in here. Just allowing this to move around. So I want that to kind of dry. I'm going to do the same thing with some other places. I'm going to get this pretty wet over here. And there's a really nice highlight right here. I don't know if I'm going to leave that highlight. I know that what I want to do is I want to, touch that like that. That may be a little darker than what I wanted to go, but we're going to go with it. I just want to play with what's happening, letting that be a little bit more free than what I normally do. I think I want some of these spots in here to just kind of get a little bit more of that purple as well. And I'm taking it along the edge of where the water is, allowing that to kind of come out in a really natural way. So this is we're doing really wet on wet with this technique to see what we can bring forward into these pictures. I'm going to do that with this guy here. So again, I'm going to just get these spots wet. Really giving myself the ability to get this really wet. Now, the one really good thing about this hot press paper is it actually dries really quickly. So that's great. It dries a lot more quickly than the other one. So I want to get this wet so that the color will travel. And again, I'm picking up my Winsor & Newton violet and I'm bringing that all around here. And I'm playing with the line between where the paper is wet and dry. So I'm catching it a little bit on where it is dry and letting it really work its way into where it is wet. So I'm allowing that watercolor magic to begin to take hold. This is an attempt at a looser style. Loose is not really where I am most comfortable as a painter or as a teacher. So we're just playing together to see what can come of this as we let this style emerge. So I'm going to let that dry, and this, I definitely don't want to take a hair dryer to it because it's gonna kind of move those colors all around. I want it to allow it to dry kind of as it is and allow that color to seep in this more loose style as it is. So I'm gonna let it dry. Now that this is more dry, there are still some wet spots up here, but I do want to really start to add some of the detail around the edges of our shells, I believe it's mollusk. So the color that I want to mix with this, I want to mix, I'm going to take my Payne's gray and I want to get quite a bit of the pigment on my brush. And I've got a bit of a brown over here and I want this to be a brown, dark, a very, very dark brown. So I want to make sure I'm mixing a really thick amount of pigment on my brush. I'm gonna just rinse the brush here and I'm gonna pick up the burnt umber. Again, quite a bit of pigment here and really bringing that in. And I think I want to also bring in some burnt sienna into this. Give it a little bit of a red, brown feel. And I want to get a strong amount of pigment here. Yeah, there we go. I think even a little bit more of the Payne's gray. And I'm going for a real certain feel. I want to make sure I mix until I get this right. I don't want to be afraid of the amount of pigment I'm picking up. I want it to feel right. Again, this is very different from what I normally do. I normally really like sharp, fine details, and we're working with a more loose style. However, this next part, the edge of the shell that I am going for, I do want to bring in some finer details. So what I want to do, I can't decide. There's some things that I want to be more brown, like right here. We're gonna bring in just a strong brown bit and just allowing that to kind of come in here and maybe work its way in here. Just giving the edge of this shell lots of definition as we go through. It's really going to bring out the shell. And I'm going to do the same thing along this side here. I know oysters are one of those things that people kind of either love them or hate them. I'm in the love them category. I love eating oysters. There is nothing better, I don't feel like, than delicious oysters. I'm gonna let this be a little bit lighter over here. Might get sharper kind of in here, sharper definition. So this is starting to kind of come out a bit and make its way out. And I'm going to begin to really kind of bring this definition in over here. Just looking at what I see on the reference photo, really playing with this as I bring it in and really trying to make sure that I do it justice in the darker spots, where I'm gonna add some here over top of that, maybe even a little over here, and just let it be over here. So this is starting to take shape, and this is one that is deliciously fun. See what I did there? To watch it take shape and emerge. I'm really enjoying that. And I want to rinse my brush a bit, and I'm gonna pick up some of this burnt sienna color, and I'm gonna bring it over here on my palette. And I do see some of that kind of, I'm gonna mix it with the brown and just let that brown burnt color wash in strongly on that side and kind of bring that in. And I do see, I'm gonna bring in more Payne's Gray into this. I'm gonna make it a little bit of a stronger blue here, and pick up some more burnt umber. Yeah, there we go. So this over here, there are some really nice, strong lines that I want to make sure I kind of bring in and begin to just, I want to keep it somewhat loose, but I do want some lines to define what's happening, what I see. But again, this is just an experiment. This is a different kind of play for me with my little oyster here. This is not what I normally do, but I've been hankering oysters, and I live inland. I live in the mid-central part of North Carolina, so don't get a lot of opportunities to have delicious ocean fresh oysters, and I've been thinking about it and kind of just letting this see how it's coming in over here. And I see some browner spots, and so I'm gonna pick up that burnt sienna, and I'm gonna add in some raw umber and maybe a little blue, a little bit more blue. And we have this really nice looking brown here, and I'm gonna get it a little bit more wet. I'm gonna rinse off my brush and gonna pick up some of that, and I wanna bring it in over here, just touching some spots. And I'm going to allow that to come in to some of these other places. This more brown bit. And again, you know, I know it's just loose. I'm not being super particular with how this is coming about, leaving some white spots, leaving some holes, and letting it kind of do the watercolor magic that I love to see so much. And it's got a nice little spot to it. Aren't you enjoying seeing how this is just gently coming together? And I wonder, you know, I want in some of these spots, I want to bring in some strong Payne's gray is really what I want. And I do see some of these spots in here where I just want to make the Payne's gray the kind of the showstopper of the experience. And I think that this little, again, I'm just not super worried about making it like particularly exact. That's not really what this is about, but I do want a deep, strong Payne's gray pigment here. And these oysters are just pretty stoked with how they're kind of taking shape and form. And I hope you're having as much fun doing this as I am, because I'm really getting a kick out of seeing how this is kind of coming together. And these spots in here. I have wanted to watercolor, and I've never watercolored oysters before. This is a first for me. I've wanted to do this. I've wanted to try painting them for a very long time. And I've never done it. And this just feels like so much fun to do this with you. Yeah, look at this. That's just delicious. Could eat them, couldn't you? I'm gonna give it a little spot here. Now, I'm going to kind of play with this shell a bit, this one here, pulling that color in here, and strong in here, and really strong color down here. I'm going to take my Payne's gray over here and sharpen that up a bit, and really get a good thick amount of pigment here and make that sharp right there. And I'm going to sharpen it up here too. Give this strong line. Now we're gonna do something in this middle, and I really want to rinse off my brush, and I want to think about where do I want there to be some highlights. I'm going to look at getting some of these spots full of water, and I'm gonna leave some spots a highlight, but I'm gonna really dip some of this in here. I'm gonna leave some white spots, but I'm going to get a good amount of kind of a orange, and we're going to just see what happens when we tap, 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 allowing that in there. And just some real highlights. So that has, I think, really taken shape, and I'm going to do the same thing on this other side. I'm going to bring in some water around in here, and you know, I got a little blue. That's okay. I want it to be interesting, and I think if these colors merge a little bit, it will be okay. So I'm going to, again, pick up some of this orange and tap, tap in, let it really move around. And yeah, what a fun look that we have happening. I think that this is just deliciously fun, and I see how I could bring some brown in here even. Yeah, like that red brown, kind of bring that in a bit over here. But I want to leave it feeling pretty delicate is what I've got going on, is a delicate feel. And man, I could see how painting oysters over and over and over could be the most fun thing in the whole world. I'm gonna do the same thing here, thinking about I want it darker over here. And I'm going to bring in my orange right here. Et voila. That is just, don't you feel like that is that watery color type of look that we are really hoping for in a piece like this? So there are some spots, obviously, I want to come in with some strong shadows, and I will do that. But what I want to do is I want to put down a light wash, and I'm going to switch brushes because the color that I want to put down now is this. I'm trying to decide. I think the ultramarine is really the color that I want to wash the background in. It's my French ultramarine, and I think that it will, yeah, lightly here, and pulling it all around. And this is where the hot press paper is just, it's a really different feel than what I'm used to. I'm so used to my cold pressed paper. And again, I prefer the cold press, but this is working for now. It's just an experiment. You have to try different supplies, and you have to really allow yourself to experiment with different things, because that's how you decide what you like, what your style is. You know, I really do think that my style, I'm more of a cold pressed paper kind of girl, and that is okay. I prefer it. I think it works for me. And here we go. So this, I want to let this bottom part kind of dry, but I need to go in and bring in this additional color over here. And bringing it all in these little spots. I'm such like a little type A person, and I do like to try to get things right, and I feel like there's a right way to do things. And the thing about watercoloring a loose piece like this is that it teaches you to be a little bit more comfortable in the ambiguity and the play of it. And this is really a loose piece, and it is a style that is so outside my comfort zone, but I'm really pleased with the way it came out. And so if you are normally someone that prefers the really sharp details, this might have been or might be outside of your comfort zone as well, but it's a great practice for us. This is certainly something that really allows us to experience just a different type of thing. So while we're waiting for this to dry, let me tell you about I was looking up some facts about oysters that I thought that you might be interested to know. So oysters have been around for about 15 million years. And when an oyster becomes an adult, when it turns 1, they can live as long as 20 years, which is so interesting. I didn't know that, did you? And oysters, they can actually change their sex. I didn't know that oysters could be like male or female. I didn't realize that was a thing, but they can change their sex, and they will often do it more than once. So they can change between male and female and can do that more than once. A juvenile oyster is called a spat, and oysters breathe like fish. So they actually have gills. Who knew? Did you know this? So those are a couple things. One other interesting note is that a single adult oyster can filter up to 50 gallons of water a day. And 50 gallons of water, it's about as much as we would use in like a 10-minute shower. And as oyster generations settle on one another and grow, they form reefs that provide shelter for other animals like fish and crabs. And another interesting thing is that oyster shells are recyclable. So we can return our shells at drop-off locations around any bay, and they're reused to help grow juvenile oysters, which we now know are called spats. How cool is that? So I'm gonna just let this dry a little bit more, and then we're gonna finish it up with our shadows under these oysters. Now, while I'm waiting for the background to dry, I see a few other spots where I would like to add a little bit more detail, definition. Again, I do want to keep this loose, but it never hurts to add in a little bit more here or there. So I see some spots here where I can just make this a little more like that. And this burnt sienna color, just making that brown. So it does require a little bit of mixing here. Just kind of mixing the right color, making sure that I'm kind of getting that. And pulling those details in to make it a little bit more like a shell. And I kind of see it just a bit over here, a little bit more, where I can bring it in. This is still pretty wet, so it's not having the sharp effect that I'm hoping, but it will do. That nice little spot back there. Now, it's dry enough for me to bring in the shadow that I want, and I want just a dark, clean, sharp Payne's gray shadow underneath these. So I'm going to bring that shadow in here, keeping it very sharp. And I'm going to do that same sharp shadow back here. Shell got a little bit close, right? But that's okay. It's just a nice shadow underneath. And I will, there's a lovely shadow, Payne's gray shadow here that kind of comes out like so around here. And it gets a little bit lighter. But that shadow really allows it to come out a bit more, and it comes out over here a bit too, and just a little bit around there. So we've got these shadows that really finish off the piece for us. And of course, we do want to let all of this dry, so I'm very much want to take this tape off, but as I take my tape off, I'm going to have to be super careful to not disturb that little pool of water that I still have happening. But look how lovely as we pull this tape off, that nice sharp line that we are getting. And on the bottom, gosh, that is so nice. Look at that. Okay, that's a lovely little pull off there. And I'm gonna do the same thing up here. Just gently taking off the tape, slowly pulling off the tape. Nicely satisfying pull of the tape. And look, that's so nice. And we'll do that again here. We're gonna get a nice sharp line here. It's gonna be so pretty. Look at this. Oh, that line is just lovely. And oh my gosh, I am in love with these oysters and their beautiful shape and the way the colors are so loose and drying in there. They're drying so nicely. It's exactly what I would have hoped for something of this particular nature. And it's just a very sharp line as we take off this tape. There we go. And there we have it. Now, anytime we paint together, I think it's really important to go ahead and sign your piece. I think it's dry enough. It's gonna bleed, I think, maybe a little, but I don't think it will be too bad. I want to just sign the piece. I want to encourage you to do the same as well. So be sure to sign your piece. There we have it, a very nice loose style oyster, and this will be a really fun, just a fun one for you to do and share with your folks. So happy painting. Let me know how it goes, and I'll meet you in the next lesson later this week. Thanks for being here.